Hey, everybody, it's your friend James Shaw. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited you're here. We're doing what we do, which is talk to elite people who are doing elite things. And if you've hung out with me for any period of time, whether it's inside Pivot Shift Ahead on Facebook or it's in the Inspire Collective, my private mastermind community, you know that I believe in a simple thing, and that is be boring. Be as boring as you possibly can and be consistent and just get up every day and run the right plays and you get results. And we found a guy who's doing that. Craig
Yeah,
or Chad, you're boring.
I
Chad,
am
you
very
are a
boring.
boring person running the same play every day. Is that right?
Absolutely, very boring.
Introduce yourself to us. Tell us who you are, where you are, and a little bit about your business, Chad.
Yes, thank you so much for having me this morning, James, and the Pivot Shift community. My name is Chad Craig, and sorry. My name is Chad Craig, and I am out of the DC, Maryland area. I've been in the business for 6 years. I started off on a small team, and then after about 9 months of being on that team, I went solo and had to rebuild my pipeline, rebuild my database. Everything had to start all over, and I did a volume of over 12 million last year and 28 units.
Yeah, you had your business, you added like, 13 units to your business year over year in a market that was down
Yeah,
over a million units. And I love what you're doing. Look, you're getting text messages right now of people saying, come list my house. So thank you
right.
for taking time to walk us through it. What we're talking about today is just really the power of consistency.
Yes.
So walk us through, because you've got some top lead sources and some certain ways you deal with those. So what are some of your top sources?
So I'm gonna break it down in percentages first. So 30% of my business comes from sign calls. 60% comes from my database, and 5 come from either social media or internet leads.
That's really good. All right, so we'll take
Mhm.
that. Sign calls, this is a blast from the past. These are
Yeah.
what, people who call off your listings?
Yes.
30% to come off of that is huge.
Yeah.
And then a
So it's
majority out of your database. My guess is you have very strategic ways on how you communicate with your database and how you do follow up. So where do you want to start?
Oh, I'm gonna start with the red book,
All
and
right,
it's
let's do it.
it and it says the DDD2, touch your database in a systematic way, right? Smart plans, of course. I leverage Twilio a lot through command, and then just client events as much as I can. I'm not really good at client events yet, and one thing that I really started to fall in love with is the home buyer workshops or seminars.
All right, let's talk your DTD2, which for those of you watching and don't know what that is,
Mhm.
that's a strategy we learned from Steve Schluter and Tammy Youngst about how to communicate with your database. And
Yes.
DTD2 stands for do the database to, which
Yep.
is just simply you call 2 letters by last name every
Mm.
week. And if you
Yep.
do that, you break it up by last name, you get through the whole database every quarter that way.
Yep.
You follow that play. And my understanding is you have a goal to get a pretty deep pipeline. What's the goal as far as how many kind of leads in the pipeline? And then I want to break down your
Yeah.
system on how you prioritize that pipeline.
So basically, I am in maps mastery as well. So my coach and I, we talked about how many leads or people I needed in my pipeline to reach my goals, and we came up with 120 people in my pipeline, and then we categorized them or ranked them by where they are in their what I like to call the real estate life cycle, whether they're 3 months right now, 3+ months, 6 months, 18 months, wherever they are in their real estate life cycle, we try to categorize them, and yet we don't skip them. Even if they're 18 months away, we still make sure that we touch them. If they're 3 months away, we touch them heavy, right? Maybe even once a week.
Well, you talked about, and I know you kind of say you're like an airline. You treat it
Yeah,
like passengers on an airline. And
yeah,
I love that analogy. It's a good way to look at it.
yeah.
So teach us about that strategy in your pipeline as if you were running an airline.
Absolutely. So I look at my pipeline as I am a tickets person or salesperson at I'm not going to endorse any airlines today. Yet I look at it as 3 different sections, right? Coach, business class, and first class. And my job is to get as many people on the airplane as possible, on and off the airplane as possible. So of course, as we think about coach, it has the most seats. And coach is people that's maybe, like I said, maybe 18 months away or they need credit repair, or they say, hey, I want to sell my house, yet I have a condition, not an objection, a condition. Maybe the kids need to finish school, or we want to just spend this last Christmas in our house before we move on to Florida or whatever the case may be. So those are the people that we're going to touch, maybe either on a quarterly basis or even a monthly basis, depending on the conversation. Now, in the business class, these are people that may be pre-approved, or you have a signed listen agreement with them, yet they're still doing things to get prepared, or they're just not a hot buyer right now. We touch them maybe every other week or maybe once a month, just again, depending on the conversation. Now, your first class, if we ever had the option or pleasure of sitting in first class, they get the most service, they get the most attention. So first class, we touch them every week. Now, that could be someone that is either under contract, on the market, or a hot buyer. So our hot buyers and our under contract, we touch them or we speak with them every Monday or Wednesday, depending on where they're at in the pipeline or where they're at on the market.
It is genius, and I love the idea of how you look at it. Coach has the most seats. It's true.
Yeah.
You want to get everybody on the plane and off the plane. That means you want to get them in the pipeline, but then get them out of the pipeline by doing business with them.
Absolutely.
And then you want to let them upgrade on the plane too. Move from coach to business, business to first. I think it's genius. I love, I will endorse Delta. That'll be my airline right now.
I love the Sky Club.
Okay, yeah, me too. All right, so let's do this then. Now let's talk about sign calls and internet leads.
Yes.
Because again, you have a system here, and this is how you win, by having systems, and you call it your 3-3-3. Tell us about it.
Yes. So the 3-3-3, if for those of that may not be familiar with the 3-3-3, if we get a sign call, of course, people, the term ghosting us come into play, right? So someone calls our sign or an internet lead, we call them 3 times a day for the first day. So once the lead comes in, we call them either morning, noon, and evening, and then 3 times for the first week. So we don't get them on the first 3. We'll call them 3 times for the first week. Say if the lead comes in on a Sunday, we'll call them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. It all depends. And then if we don't get them the first week, then we'll call them 3 times for the entire month. And then after that, they probably don't go anywhere but into a drip campaign.
Okay, but they're going to hear from you 9 times over that. So you've got a legitimate opportunity to create a relationship, and that's ultimately what you're after, is relationship building. The 3-3-3 allows you to build relationship with someone you don't know because they've called off the sign or come through online.
Absolutely.
Your database touches allow you to deepen relationships with people you do know. So how important is relationship to you?
That's the number one thing in our business, right? We are in the people business. We are people over transactions, people over commission, and being the person that I am, I love people so much that, and I want to see them win and want to see them do well. Is that inviting them to open house, or inviting them to a function, or just simply reaching out to them and say, hey, even some of my past clients, James, I really love doing this. I love sponsoring their housewarming. I love doing that. And maybe they might not want me to be 100% present, and that's okay. But I have catering services. I have different services that help them prepare for their housewarming. Maybe it's a lawn care person, or maybe it's someone that can cook some cookies or bake a cake, or even do the entire spread for them and their guests. I love to sponsor that for them.
It's clearly about relationship. Have you always been this systematized? Like, is this just who you are, or was it something you had to build?
No, I had to build and grow into this. And I'll say my first year, I think I did like 8 units as a solo agent. And then I had to realize that the systems is what is going to take me to the next level, because I'm a father of 3. My kids are in sports. They in school functions, and I had to be there. I have the luxury of taking my kids to school and picking them up. So most of the time I'm at the schoolhouse at 3 p.m. So I had to figure out a way where I can still touch people and do the 3-3-3 and still be present for my family.
So, what are some lessons you learned about how to do that? Because I know a lot of people have all those things going on and they struggle to put things like the 333 in place and get 120 people in the pipeline and
Yeah.
know how to follow up. So, what advice would you give?
Um, Really, it's simple. Just stay consistent. Make sure that you. What really helps me is having my pipeline in front of me and looking at it on a daily basis. That way, I know who to talk to, know who to call, and then stay on top of your systems. Always try to look for more. Reach out to other agents that's doing the same thing and see what's working for them and see what's not working for them, and be willing to grow, right? And be growth mindset instead of fixed mindset.
You talked about MREA earlier, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. That's this
Yeah.
book right here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You talked
Mm-hmm.
about that one. Before we recorded, you started talking about Shift book.
Yep.
You're clearly a learning based person.
Yep. Yes.
How important have these books been, or other, pivot shift communities, stuff like that, been to your progress?
All right. So, quick story. The beginning of the pandemic, you started the Shift community, and let me tell you, that was a godsend because I had no idea how I was going to do the business and what, and it really helped me gain traction from there, and it helped my mindset. The Shift book in particular is almost like your guideline to getting you through tough times. Thank you, Gary Keller and everybody else, Jay Papasan, for writing that book. And it's not just for Keller Williams; it's for everybody. And it's really not just for real estate, James. It's for any business, to be honest with you, because every business needs the same thing, which is people, right? And it helps you get through those tough times, and it keeps you focused. Now, when we talk about the MREA for me is the Bible, and it helps you build that business out. So the Shift is the foundation for me, and then the MREA is how you go up from the foundation and build it out.
I like it. It's really good. You told me that this year you're running a little bit behind where you
Yes.
wanted to, and so you've made some adjustments.
Yes.
What are some of the adjustments you've made? Well, I've got a follow up. So, what are some of the adjustments that you've
Mm-hmm.
made to help get you back where you want to be this year?
Well, the one adjustment that I've made was really being more consistent and on social media and really getting the message out, because there is a lot of white noise out there and misinformation. So really just being on social media and being more vocal on social media as well. Instead of just door knocking and passing out flyers, I want to be a presence, because I look at social media as a digital billboard.
Mhm.
Now, some people, they get a lot of business from social media. I can't say I'm not one of those people that just get a lot of business from social media. Yet I know that getting the right message out there has attracted the kind of clientele that I want to work with, and the people that grow to trust me and like me.
Now you started. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and the other adjustment was that I started to implement more home buyer workshops or seminars. I looked at the model, and I can't remember the group name. I think they're out of New Jersey. That in the MREA playbook, where they was doing seller workshops, and it was really difficult for me to get traction on that because I couldn't set my mind around how can I actually do them. Yet I knew that home buyer workshops or seminars was just as effective, and I have found that I would say, if I didn't do the percentage yet, but I would say about 40% of people that show up to my home buyer workshop actually have a house that they need to sell.
That's fascinating. I
Yes.
love what you're talking about. You brought up two things. You brought up
Mhm.
home buyer workshops, and then earlier you mentioned housewarming parties.
Yes.
We've done sessions on both of those things. And so
Yes.
if others are watching this and you're interested, if you go to jamesdshaw.com and click agent interviews, you can find the stuff we've done on both
Yeah.
of those things that
Yep.
you have mentioned, Chad. But what I want to get back to is you've made these additions and adjustments within the last 30 to 60 days.
Yes.
And so do you have like massive results from those things yet?
As far as building my pipeline, yes. Not in the closed transaction
Yeah,
category.
you haven't gotten paid
Yes.
on this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you tell an agent who says, well, I've made these changes. I did this 60 days ago and I've been running this play for 60 days, but I'm not getting paid yet. What would you tell somebody that's looking at it like that?
Oh, good question. Just keep doing it. Just continue to do it. Just stay the course. And you started this interview off by saying that I was boring. And I would say do the boring stuff well and get better at boring. If I could say
I'm with you. I'm boring too. We got two boring guys hanging out, which is awesome. And that's because we know that success in this business is boring, and
Yeah,
that it's finding the right plays and running them. And what we attempt to do with interviews like this
absolutely.
is to help people know what plays work so you can go run them. Chad,
Absolutely.
you're awesome. Final
Thank you.
thoughts?
Nope, just be boring and get better at being boring.
I
I
like it.
promise you, you will get massive results.
Thank you. Proud of you. Thanks for joining us.